matches the red of the Horde extremely well. Let's check in with the standings after that last win, the first win for Tempo Storm of Phase 2. And we're talking about ENDEMIC because they have the possibility of being atop the standings. They're already there tied up with Heroes, Hearth, Octalysis, and Tempo Storm, but they're the only team now who can possibly get 2 wins to close out the weekend. The other team would have been Team Freedom, but losing to Heroes, Hearth Esports.
Well, we will have to put a little bit of a side note beside it, because if they do pull off this victory, they have now faced the only 2 teams that are capable of having 2 losses, at least coming into Sunday, in No Tomorrow and Simplicity. So they would be responsible for 1 each of those. So there is still a lot of teams to go through before we can look at them at 2-0 and be like, all right, this is the team. It's a very good start for a team, because we look at 7 series that you have to play before that midseason brawl, and if you can start out 2-0, generally we've seen if you can get to that 4-3 mark, that 5-2 mark, you make it to the Western Clash, and that's the first step towards getting more and more success, and then of course to BlizzCon.
Well, these 2 teams both have people I love getting to talk to whenever we get to hear from them, and that's Michael Udall and Hosty. So let's hear their thoughts on this upcoming match.
Yeah, so Simplicity has picked up Equinox as a coach, and he's a person and player that I really respect. Simplicity as a whole is going to be a lot better this split, in my opinion. I mean, I think it's really important that we come out really strong in week 1 and beat Simplicity and No Tomorrow, right? Because we're out here trying to prove that we're one of the top teams in North America, and the only way to do that is to come out every single week and show that, right? And that's something that consistently the last 2 years teams I've been on have not been able to do, right? For whatever reason, we've just been inconsistent, right? And you need to come out every single week and just prove that you're the best. I expect the series with Simplicity to be, you know, I feel like we're still favored, but I could see it go 3-1 or maybe even 3-2 in our favor. And they generally have proven that at the beginning of the season, they're much better than at the end of the season. And I mean, so week 1, like I feel like they're going to be practicing hard, really motivated, and we'll see how it goes.
So this weekend being our first weekend starting the HGC with our current roster, with all our role swaps as well. We're mostly looking into the rebuilding phase, of course. We want to see how we do on the tournament day. ENDEMIC made some crazy roster swaps. I mean, they brought on some incredibly talented players, and they're all extremely hungry. On top of that, they just had an amazing sponsorship pickup. So that being said, we definitely do want the win, and we think we could dunk on ENDEMIC. So I think it's going to be a 3-0.
Like No Tomorrow, Simplicity in their drafting drafted a little more to their strengths, what we would have expected, getting to see some nostalgia factor like Mages for K1 Pro, his Jaina, also Tiger JK's Karzim. And though we saw by the 3rd game things were standardized a lot, it was still a hard loss for them versus Team Freedom 0-3.
Yeah, when we saw that second game when it was Johanna Stitches, not the most common that we've seen, and then not going slam build at 1 because you need the defensive utility. It just felt like it was lacking a lot, and then things started to shore up by game 3, but it was too far behind at that point. So look for them, I think, to fix some of those mistakes in draft and maybe do things a little bit differently. And a hero that you and I were talking about kind of in the mage role is Medivh. Hosty is known for Medivh. If you've ever tuned into his stream, I think the majority of the games he plays are Medivh. He's known as one of the better Medivhs up there with Dansky here in North America. And I think for him, it's something double mage doesn't really work out, but maybe try and play something around that factor and see if you can fit that in now that they've got K1 over on the primary role, that he can flex over onto something else.
Well, we're going to be going to Towers of Doom for the first game, so that is a place where sometimes you see the Medivh, and that is going to be Simplicity's choice. They also banned Braxis Holdout. Always, ENDEMIC is banning Battlefield of Eternity versus Simplicity. It is a common ban versus Simplicity because this team has always been known as more of a team fighting team, and you talked about trying to shore up some of the issues for Simplicity from that last series. I think having Equinox as a coach is hopefully going to help them do that faster than they would have otherwise, and I do feel like a common issue with some of the role swaps we've seen is being over-aggressive within your roles, and one that we saw from that would have been Zuna on his new role back into the melee, but also we've just seen that in general, even from someone like Yoda, because you're getting used to that new role.
I think that will be something that you have to temper a little bit if you're Zuna, and maybe having that second set of eyes with Equinox there to review things after will be there. Obviously, Towers of Doom gives you a little bit more leeway to be aggressive because everybody's kind of choked into small areas, so you don't necessarily have to chase as far, you don't have to dive as far. So I think those opportunities will find themselves. He knows how to do it. It's just a matter of when to do it, and sometimes it's not always the correct time. So we'll see if that does come into play, and then if you do get in trouble, maybe you get that Medivh and you just portal out. Maybe that's one way.
Well, on the other side of the battlefield, ENDEMIC wowed us with their synergy. There was obviously a lot of hard work and dedication that went into their time growing together as a team prior to showing up here on Friday. And we heard a little bit from them that this is a very friend-heavy roster. They spend time together outside of scrimming, playing other games, which has helped them in that synergy develop that a little bit faster. But I thought what was especially impressive from them is just how many times in different ways they could combo abilities to have success in team fights.
The Deckard and Hanzo combo that we saw multiple times, and the Johanna. I got a feeling we're going to see a lot more of that. We saw 2 games of Deckard in that previous series, and we'll see if we get another game. We also got the Alex Straza game, but that was for Infernal Shrines, a little bit more map specific. Here, Deckard does seem possible. Malfurion as well, we know, has high priority, so we'll see if that's played around at all. But Genji's going to be first ban material here for simplicity.
Both Hosty and Dansky play a lot of Hanzo. Tracer played by both side Biggie. We saw some of that. Hosty plays a mean Tracer. And both teams only played Johanna and ETC in their first matches on Friday. This draft is rolling by. Genji and Ab with their bans. Malfurion first pick. We get the Dahaka Deckard stealing that away from ENDEMIC. And we have Biggie picking up that Tracer yet again.
Yeah, the Tracer was the one that I kind of questioned who's going to pick that up. We saw Hosty try his hand out of it on Volskaya. Just there wasn't enough around, I think, to really make it look good. But then you look at Biggie on this team in particular. When Genji's not available, Tracer is very much there. And I think Tracer is a very strong hero right now, especially when we look at the roster of ENDEMIC, especially the Malfurion pairing we know does really well. And so this is a very good start to the draft. And of course, Blaze, Bunker. I hear that's a pretty decent, combo.
It is a good one, and picked up here pretty high up, not quite as high of priority as we've seen from Heroes Hearth, who is either banning it or first picking. But in this instance, Simplicity having Deckard Cain, this is not really an Alex Straza map. We are going to see, Michael Udall play Malfurion there, and he first picked Malfurion, so never mind from that. Those were the only 2 supports we saw Michael Udall play. This is our first time seeing him play Malfurion. Yeah,
I think he touched upon it a little bit in his interview. He said that Malf's too boring. He wanted to play somebody else with a little bit more pizzazz, maybe. So Malfurion, we'll see. Maybe he wants to make plays. Maybe he goes Twilight Dream. And there is a balance, right? For a long time, it was Twilight Dream, and then other regions started to experiment a little bit with Tranquility, and a lot of it, when I first heard about it, was going into Western Clash. And I asked somebody like Zelia, I was like, why all of a sudden do we see this? And originally it's just to deal with a double clone during Abathur days. And that was kind of the original iteration. Then people were like, wait a minute, this actually works in far more circumstances. And then it became more prominent. So now it's more of a split.
ETC banned by Simplicity. We'll see if they get Johanna here. Like I said before, both of these teams only played Johanna and ETC during their first series. Phoenix is the ban from ENDEMIC, trying to control somewhat that ranged lineup that Simplicity has, and Warp is effective at trying to eat some of those pulse bombs. So now maybe going to go more so toward a Hanzo for Simplicity.
Yeah, it's something that we saw Hosty have great success on with that Hanzo. And if that is an option, but now with K1 over there, it could very much be his hero. So still something to consider as we do look at those 2 options. We talk about Li Ming quite a bit, especially when K1's name comes up, something that has definitely shown. But as you and I looked at that series yesterday with Tracer, and it was the Brightwing Uther, we wondered, where's Medivh?
Ready to roll out.
Well, here's a Tracer counter.
Yes. Auto attacks. And the faster the better is a great way of dealing with Tracer. It can be really hard to hit her with skill shots with all the mobility she has, but if you can just right-click her, that seems to work all right. And know where her recall is. When she's low, boom, BFG rolls right on in.
Let's see if they can make it happen. But Garrosh and Sergeant Hammer, we've seen a couple Hammer bans, but now we're finally getting a good look at it here. Getting the big umbrella, I like to call it, your own little umbrella to protect yourself in. Tracer does not like to go in there. And to get spell armor, it's like, well, that pulse bomb's nice. Let me just go ahead and neutralize like most of that. So
don't have to lead her when she's in siege mode with potions, which is annoying sometimes with Deckard Cain. People can dodge your heals.
Yeah, even if you get hover siege, you're not going very fast.
No, it's pretty easy to lead her. Into the fray, gives armor and a help. She gets her own self unstoppable with siege tactics. Might be all right here. Last 2 picks for ENDEMIC.
Well, that explains the Genji and the ETC. ETC could have gone stage dive. That's one way to get on there, and Genji obviously dives in, and you want to avoid that. Johanna can walk in there a little bit. Remember, this is post-armor changes, so Johanna no longer has that baseline physical armor. It's something that she had for quite some time. No longer there. Higher health pool, but no
still blinds.
And still blinds, but that physical armor no longer there. So it does hurt when you walk into that Sergeant Hammer a bit more than it used to.
And we'll see how fast they can get on top of that Sergeant Hammer because, like I said, ENDEMIC running these synergistic chain CC comps, they already have the Condemned Blessed Shield back, they have Dragon's Arrow, which Dansky was using from a very far back distance to surprise people with and start that crowd control chain going. And then, of course, Blaze and Mouth add to that too. Last pick for Simplicity. What do you think it's going to be now to round out this composition?
You know, I'm thinking maybe mage style, but then again, we don't know who's on the hammer, whether it's Hosty or K1 Pro. So I feel it's going to be another range damage dealer. It's just a matter of what's their comfort level. You're going to go with Falstad. Gives them the disengage. Gives them the double global, which we've seen used quite a bit.
Good old-fashioned protect the hammer composition. All right. This is the first time we've actually had Sergeant Hammer, correct? Everything else has just been banned?
Just been banned.
Seen in Europe, though. All right. Of course, seen at the Midseason Brawl 2. Used as a deterrent for a Garrosh, too, because of the sheer amounts of poke and the difficulty to get on top of her with the Garrosh, especially once you get the siege tactics with the Unstoppable. And then hover siege mode, too. I think this is a good protective composition to go along with the hammer. Is it enough to take out ENDEMIC?
Well, the Johanna is there. I think it's really going to come down to the Wombos. I think you can get some regular sustain. I think there's going to be a lot for Hanzo to do. Make sure and land those scatter arrows to give that amount of harassment. And with Towers of Doom, there are several structures you can bounce off of, so that is something to keep in mind, but that can be healed up. So it's going to come down to, can you combo stuff together? Can you get in as Johanna? Can you get the Dragon Arrow set up? And then can you get the Pulse Bomb for the execution? That's going to be hard to pull off. Falstad a little bit more vulnerable to that style, so Falstad might actually be the priority target in a lot of these circumstances.
Yeah, a double global behind that too. A lot of times when you're looking at Sergeant Hammer compositions, you can try to out-rotate around that, but having a double global should be very nice to stop ENDEMIC from being able to do that as easily.
Yeah, the Hammer pick, or the Falstad pick just confuses me a bit. It's one of the things I don't see that I am sometimes curious if this is maybe the situation. His level 4, you can get a talent when you barrel roll. It's a farther barrel roll. The last person I saw use that was Hasuabs last year, but that was before it got buffed. Now you get the shield that when you barrel roll, you get a bigger shield, but it also stays on there. It doesn't degrade. It doesn't expire. And so it is one of the things that if you do get hit with a Pulse Bomb, it gives you that shield that you can survive through some of those. Generally, Hammer Gains is going to be there. It's one of those things that maybe this is a situation because that Falstad will be picked on heavily by that Falstad or by that Tracer.
Yes, yes, it will. The shielding from Static Shield maybe could help out with it too if we see that instead, but I wonder if we'll see
even shields from Deckard's level 4 if we go that route and get on the healing. I think you're going to need every bit of burst protection you can for that Falstad. The hammer, as you said, has that spell armor that you give yourself just by pressing E button, and I think it's one of the things. It's hard to engage into her. It's hard to get those burst kills, but Falstad definitely somebody you can get on.
We have to remember at Midseason Brawl 2, Tracer, in picking a Deckard Cain into a Tracer generally did not work out well for the Deckard Cain team. The idea of you can hit her with stay a while and listen, maybe a little bit easier now that you can see where the recall point is going to go, but you got to force that first and have Deckard Cain into a spot where he can actually take advantage of that. We're just waiting on one of the players to be ready, and then we'll be getting into the first game between ENDEMIC and Simplicity. But one hero that's been absent that I'm just not too thrilled about in North America that we've seen in Europe is Urel. Do you expect that to change with her changes that come in?
Yeah, I think universally right now, a lot of people are looking at Urel, whether it's within the competitive scene or whether it's within your Hero League games or wherever you're playing. All of a sudden, Urel looks a little bit tankier, a little bit harder to kill. I think the nerf on the level 4 on the healing is interesting, but the extra armor on your jump in, maybe that's enough to supplement some of these. We're going to find out.
We'll see if ENDEMIC or Simplicity want to bring her back around in one of the further games to come. But for now, we'll introduce these teams. Hosty will be playing that Sergeant Hammer K1 Pro on the Falstad. That is an old classic, like many heroes for K1 Pro. King Caffeine, he'll be playing the Garrosh. Tiger JK going over to the Deckard Kane. And finally, Zuna playing Dahaka.
See how aggressive we get on those dives for the Dahaka this game after what we saw on the towers last game. But ENDEMIC's going to be here on the right in red, as that will be Dansky on the Hanzo. He's going to be poking away. Cure, of course, moving back over to that melee role. He's going to be on Blaze. Biggie will be doing his part to have an impact there on Tracer. Michael Udall, of course, new support player here. It's going to be on Malfurion. Rounding out, B-Kid going back to an old role again here is going to be on the Johanna.
I can't echo enough how cool I think a backline of Biggie and Dansky are. Both of them getting so much respect in their time playing. I remember Dansky on Freedom Days had a lot of talk about him, and then Biggie quietly doing his job, but always making a name for himself to do that, even as far back as his Naventic days. This is such a cool lineup to see for ENDEMIC.
Well, Sergeant Hammer, as you said, is an easy target to hit with those potions, as Hosty just sieged up and said, come and get me, because you're not doing much, and it's going to be hard until we get to those areas. Scatter Arrow can really get stacked up. If you're Hosty on the Sergeant Hammer, staying away from walls is your priority. Getting hit by that short burst off of the wall is what you want to avoid. So Hosty's positioning will be something he'll have to be very cognizant of as we move forward.
K1 Pro, was he doing the cancel? Was that purposeful?
I didn't get to see the full animation.
Moving slowly. We've seen Wubby do that on a Leoric to cancel out some of the auto attacks from the minions. And he wants to play as safely as possible given the composition that ENDEMIC has. We know that. So K1 Pro in that mid lane, still like on Dragonshire, has the opportunity to fly in if needed from one of his allies. But until then, allowing the minions to come in, it does do a little bit of tower damage, but ensures that he stays safe versus ENDEMIC.
I remember when Wubby showed me that last year mid-season brawl, and then I went to play and test it. His mouse sensitivity is one of the slowest mouse sensitivities I've ever. It's like a first-person shooter. Like he has one of those giant mouse pads that you have to like scroll all over just to like move your mouse halfway across the screen. I was like, I can't do this. Like it makes it a lot easier for him to slowly inch away. I tried it on regular mouse speed, not as easy.
That's why he's the pro. Great flip. Follow-up route too. Michael Udall drops a route of his own. Falstad died in the mid with the Blaze Tracer coming in handy for ENDEMIC to get that first blood.
Well, that's the part, is that Falstad will be the priority target, and that's one of the reasons why we saw him trying to cancel out those minions. He wants the wave behind them to push up close enough for him to be able to auto-attack them underneath his towers. Instead, might have stepped out a little bit too far, and Biggie just needs one small moment, and if you get any type of CC from that Blaze, easy picking. And
unfortunately, because Falstad went down there and everyone else was tied to their lanes, you're not going to leave that Sergeant Hammer alone. There was some experience missed there, and ENDEMIC has near level lead, half-level lead over Simplicity. First altar phase is starting. It's a 2 for 2 in the top. Remember that these are globals for Simplicity. Let's see if that means that Simplicity can get the rest of this. We're going to see the Sonic Arrow get one interrupt on Tiger.
B-Kid coming in with the flank, gonna get the blind there. That's gonna be the first interrupt. Scatter Arrow already used. Nice trade out there. Did not go the extra shielding. Still hammer gains, making sure you can survive in those team fights. Pulse Bomb was used. There's gonna be a reset on that. There's gonna be another blind. Sonic Arrow is gonna be used. This might be the opportunity. Simplicity might be able to finally channel, and it looks like they're gonna do just that.
And they put Sergeant Hammer with that ambush and Zuna toward the corner of that in the bush, and leaving Blaze in the top. ENDEMIC were okay with doing that, just trying to see if they can deny some experience from Simplicity and further that lead that they had gotten with that Falstad kill.
Well, things back to normal, but that experience lead definitely here. ENDEMIC almost a full level lead. That pick that we talked about on Falstad denied some experience. You can see the bot lane damage done, and then of course Blaze. Things working out here early for ENDEMIC. Biggie looking for another opportunity, still trying to stack up that pulse bomb, and you best believe that when he has that, he's going to be looking for that pick again.
ENDEMIC has 7, and Simplicity do not. They're willing to invade this, though. It's tricky with the Sergeant Hammer to get into that position.
Blaze is going back up. They don't have eyes on exactly if Blaze left. And there's going to be the icon. Tahaka's coming in. They need to try and capitalize on this and get a kill. Iron Skin's going to be used. He did go the movement speed. There's going to be the toss in. Nature's Cure used after the drag, but B-Kid, no Iron Skin. This is going to be a pick here, and that's very well played by Simplicity. They do need to get back to lanes quickly to make sure they don't lose out on experience, but that is a very positive sign to defend your territory.
Yeah, they get that Sapper camp. They don't lose the double Sappers bottom, which was a problem for No Tomorrow. In the last Towers of Doom game we saw, Simplicity are trying to make sure that that is not as big of a problem, because it did force a lot of the rotations from No Tomorrow for that bottom lane. But now with the double globals, they get into lane. ENDEMIC still holds a level lead, though, thanks to the constant soaking and not overcommitment. Yes, they did lose the Johanna, but because they were able to soak so effectively, they're rounding 10 a lot faster than Simplicity are.
Still early enough that there's not a lot of experience being soaked elsewhere. See if they try and get a couple of pokes in here with Sergeant Hammer. There's going to be stun #1 by Cure. Biggie starting the channel, as is Michael Udall, just in case. There's going to be a toss in by Cap. By a little bit of time, Zuna eating some damage there by Biggie on the Tracer, as it's now a full 5-on-5. They need to try and side soak, which is what you see Blaze on the minimap doing right now, trying to get to that 10 that you were just talking about, Gilly.
You can see Hosty just sharking his way up closer and closer. This is Cure. Jet Propulsion hit Zuna because Dansky was coming in, used the Essence, still fell very low, so we had to back off.
I think they got to get at it. I don't think Simplicity can stay for much longer. You can already see Tahaka moving back to that top lane. They've got to get there. Pulse Bomb's going to be used. There's going to be the armor in place, mitigating that damage, but the damage is done in terms of poor health as the channel comes in here, even 32-32. But this bottom lane now point of interest here for ENDEMIC.
Heroic abilities for ENDEMIC. We see the Tranquility trying to help with some of that damage. There's that Dansky Dragon Arrow. And Domino was already used. A Jet Propulsion as soon as it finishes. This surely should be a King Caffeine kill. Great Gust, though. Just as Simplicity hit 10 and Caffeine with 49 armor. That's as big as it gets. Now Cure is going to fall.
He stayed in that bunker, and he was so close to getting the takedown, but K1 Pro, he's like, I got 10, team. I'm coming in. And he positioned himself perfectly to get into Gust and by just enough time. King Caffeine, K1 Pro, they're internet high-fiving right now.
That is a duo that they like to be able to combo those kinds of things, regardless of what roles they're on. It was most fun for me to see them on support and tank, but the saving, yeah, King Caffeine owes him a drink or something.
Well, there's plenty of potions to go around, and potentially at 20 there's endless potions, bottomless potions, always the best. But now Simplicity holding that bot lane, very important, I think, for that early part of the game. This is one of those double altar phases over the top where teams generally trade out here. But the Sapper camps do have to be neutralized here. They're coming in on both sides. Hosty doing his job. Those auto attacks splash when you're in siege damage, so makes her fairly easy clear, and Garrosh trying to get the toss in and potentially the taunt. Falstad is in trouble.
He lives, but barely.
Pulse Bomb, I'm telling you, every time Falstad steps out, Biggie is going to be all over him. It's like free chicken wing night.
Look, Falstad, I don't know how many people, how many co-casters I have to explain this to. Falstad is the bird rider.
Yeah, and he doesn't live when the bird... Have you ever seen when Falstad dies, the bird doesn't look too pretty either.
It's like Rexar with Misha. You can't separate him.
I played against the Rexar last night with Butcher. Whenever Rexar dies, Misha dies, and you get double the meat.
Double the meat, double the fun.
That's right.
Simplicity left Sergeant Hammer down the bottom, and I think that's going to be a constant tactic, and that's why they have those double globals, so that they can still manipulate the other lanes and be able to get their own altars when they're up at the top, because that Sergeant Hammer is so immobile that it's the Simplicity hope that they keep enough of ENDEMIC down in the bottom, and then they can kind of make the magic happen with their globals instead. Just like now.
There's going to be the slow from the hammering. Bunker used. It's still on a fairly short cooldown. K1 Pro's got to be careful because he did use his barrel roll. Tracer you could see kind of lurking, waiting to see if there was an opportunity. There isn't going to be one, but the rest of the action down here. There's the scatter arrow. You can see Hosty again is positioning. Good execution there by Dansky to get maximum value out of that scatter arrow to at least keep Hosty honest.
13 here for both of the teams, seeing what you would expect. Hypercooling engines, though, is what you see for Sergeant Hammer about having the cooldown reduction from thrusters. Maybe lets her move around a little bit more on this map, but home is where the heart is, and Sergeant Hammer loves that bottom lane.
Double altar again, but this time between that mid and bot area. Definitely going to look a lot different than the last double altars we saw. See if we get some action here. Globals, as you said, still hanging tight in the middle. Falstad, I think Falstad has to just fly to safety. I don't think he can casually walk down unless he has eyes on the Tracer. Dansky, let's see if Zuna comes out. Isolation was used, Gilly.
It is in the drag 2. Nature's Cure stops that. Hosty's sitting right in the middle. They also have Sappers to contend with. Flip hits Cure, but he has the jet propulsion to make it on out. Doesn't even need to burn bunker yet.
Zuna still sharking around on that Dahaka. There's the pulse bomb onto K1 Pro. Shield enough there as he also barrel rolls over into some of those health potions. Kira gonna miss the jet propulsion there, but the oil is down. Biggie starting to get the channel. Tiger JK with the interrupt to start.
Woof.
Neither one channeled. BFG, well, kind of missed the mark.
It did some damage to Biggie, though. But yeah, it's not getting quite what you would hope for. It's still, though, Simplicity gets the setup with Hosty up at the mid altar while Zuna's seeing if he can channel in the bottom, keeping control over both of these. I sort of expected maybe that we'd see the teams be willing to trade out, especially since it's 28 versus 28, but it's clearly Simplicity who is saying that they can claim both.
And right now, ENDEMIC got the first channel. Now the point of contention here going to be at the bottom. Simplicity didn't even make an attempt to channel that, as it did look like they might have had an opportunity, but unable to do so. Jet propulsion gets interrupted there as the knockup from King Caffeine. Hosty the entire time chilling in that siege mode.
This might be the point that Simplicity wants, though, but they need to get Hosty off of them. Tracer goes down. Simplicity's looking for more, gets the isolation and the throw-in into the fray, into the body blocks, and with the taunt takes down Malfurion.
And all that started by Zuna lurking in the bush. 3 members down now, and it's an opportunity for Simplicity to turn this game around. Yes, they gave up the first altar, but they captured the second. They're going to capture a lot more as they've captured themselves a 1-level lead. And with the Sergeant Hammer, they're just going to casually walk up here. K1 Pro as well. He's actually wearing the shots for the moment, but minions are now here. This is going to be bot lane control going over to Simplicity.
Yes, Simplicity have built an expansion onto their home as they steal away the bell tower from ENDEMIC and have a level lead over ENDEMIC as they hit 16. Cure's doing all he can. He is... We haven't seen Falstad come up yet. Look at these body blocks. They're trying. They're coming in.
Here it comes. There's the fly in, but Hanzo's also chilling. No Dragon Arrow available. Bunker's going to be used. There's nobody in sight. The Gust going to keep him away, at least from getting back to that side, but the oil's going down. So trading out some relatively short cooldown heroics, but the threat is very much there. Cure holding on one more time, but they actually have company on top.
Straight up with the Dragon's Arrow that was dodged by the Burrow. B-Kid's trying to keep Zuna here, even using the Blessed Shield, roots everything, diving deep for this kill with the jet propulsion. There was no Gust. The Gust was used hoping to get the kill, and now K1 Pro is in a heap of danger.
Might be able to make it out of there. Jet propulsion just missed.
He held that barrel roll for as long as he could around the corner, and that was
I believe we saw Dansky maybe use the agility over so that he was out of danger himself from that lightning rod. Well, they're trading out here. We're back at triple altar phase, but their sappers pathing through the bottom.
Yeah, one camp went through.
What's better than one, Gilly?
2. All of it. Better setup for ENDEMIC on the altars. Nobody stops either, though.
Oh, Gust was used, and it was late.
So Simplicity got the bottom altar and all the sappers. 10 shots versus 6 shots. It's still a crazy game. Or 8 shots.
This is a much better Simplicity team than we saw.
It is. It is.
I am far more on this type of draft and this type of play. And the Sergeant Hammer obviously brings a very unique style. So far, so good. They do find themselves with a 2 core health lead. Nothing set in stone just yet. Biggie stacking up the pulse bomb. He's going to be just fine there. K1 Pro holding his own in the middle, but this bot lane with the next altar phase in the bottom, Simplicity wanting to hold on to it.
ENDEMIC will not give up top. That's why they have Tracer all the way up there, but that takes away a lot of the kill pressure with the pulse bomb that they would have otherwise, which makes this just a stalemate between the two teams until someone gets a perceived advantage. Sapper camp somewhere, they've all been taken.
I mean, how do you walk into a Sergeant Hammer to reclaim your home that, you know, they made for their own?
You just don't.
Yeah, you just, like, man. Oh, here we go. Biggie, can he make the play here? An interesting rotation to find the K1 Pro. He was sitting in that mid lane, but he was hanging out at the mid fort, mid keep area at this point, and he just didn't want to push out into lane for fear of that Tracer, fear of the gank. And then he finally was like, well, what if I just rotate top? And then started to get a little bit of damage in there. But now they're going to try and use the Sappers as ENDEMIC to try and keep somebody handcuffed to that top lane. They're also going to steal the boss.
Yeah, because you can't fight into that singular altar. They have, Simplicity's already proven that. The last time ENDEMIC did that, it did not work out in their favor. So instead, great dodge again. Zuna's been doing really well, dodging out all those jet propulsions. Instead, ENDEMIC's just doing what they can, trading out boss, trades out the altar, and then Sapper camps. But remember, there's 2 Sapper camps in the bottom to the 1 that's here in the top, and Simplicity's doing all they can to hold this. They do have Gust.
Kill one of them got through. See if they have a cooldown here for the other. I think that's way too healthy and way too much of a risk.
He's gonna go in for this.
Oh my. That is the risk when you are a Falstad versus a Tracer. Sappers of their own here. There's going to be one that goes across. 10-9 as the tension starts to build. Still, the altar here going to be in the middle of the map. So bot lane control, but a nice drag. Nature's Cure is going to be there. BFG goes out. Tranquility forced to be used to keep B-Kid alive. Dahaka, however, into the fray is going to keep him alive as King Caffeine getting the toss back.
Yeah, the Blessed hope to lock down Zuna, but with an Into the Fray, it's very difficult to keep someone locked down for too long in that position. That's punishable. I'm loving everything about this game 1 between these two teams. You're right, this is a completely different Simplicity. They are putting on a show with the Sergeant Hammer pick and great decisions made around it.
Just the amount of wave clear, Sergeant Hammer alone, but then whether it's a Falstad, whether it's a Dahaka, you can see the priority there is to clear the minions, make sure that, because the best way to siege up on a structure is to have minions with you, and there's just way too much clear on that. 20 tier also here for Simplicity. See if they turn their attention back to that top lane. No Sapper camps available yet here in the bottom lane. I'd be surprised if they contest this, but this is 5 shots and it would only leave 1 left. And you can actually see this is a very interesting point because Falstad is holding on to his 20. Could go continuous to make sure and have that Mighty Gust continue to go to capture what could be the last point after this one.
ENDEMIC are giving up this altar in favor of getting 20 ASAP. Because there's going to be Sapper camps pretty soon.
Well, if the point comes under contention, we see a 20 talent tier for Sergeant Hammer, making sure to get extra attack speed every time she's hitting that hero. Something that during that, Dahaka is under trouble. The Mighty Gust forced to be used. Pulse Bomb actually missed there, so Zuna survives.
That he does, by the skin of his teeth. 20 here for ENDEMIC.
Epic Mount was picked up. I don't know if that was snapped in. I was checking something on the other monitor. Maybe that was picked up at the last moment.
Sergeant Hammer's not here. Sergeant Hammer was at the camp, and they knew the globals were in mid. Hammer's on the camp. ENDEMIC take back this bot. This is not end game now for Simplicity off of this camp.
But they need to take the bottom bell tower here to try and get double, I think, if they want to try and end. I think they're just going to try and bully their way in, but Simplicity able to get that in time. This is double altar up at the top. No continuous ends. Epic Mount was picked up. I'd like to go back and watch that again. If Epic Mount was picked up just to save Dahaka, that could have potentially taken away one of your win conditions by getting that continuous in the top, especially in those chokes where you know you're going to have more of an opportunity to capture that next altar.
That 1 point is going to be a menace to bust into if ENDEMIC can't get a kill here.
Here we go.
I think you can leave these Sappers.
Yeah, I think they're afraid that if they lose bottom bell tower and ENDEMIC takes a team fight, that's 5-5, and that's enough for them to end the game. And I think they're afraid of losing that team fight. But they've got to get up here.
They're late
Sergeant
to this,
Hammer.
though. Hammer is slow. That's the, why they didn't maybe keep like K1 Pro down there. They get rid of the Sappers. The Sappers are gone. They still have the bell tower.
by not forcing an early channel, this is the problem. By not forcing an early channel, ENDEMIC now can delay their engage, which means they can complete the channel on the right. K1 Pro looking for an opportunity. The arrow can definitely set this up. Look at the choke point right now. Look at the top right of your screen. Lurking there is going to be Dansky looking to rip that arrow, find an opportunity to set up a massive wombo combo.
Posty is in a very scary place, but he's hidden as he slowly makes his way through that choke. K1 Pro on the side, ready to gust if the engagement comes.
The amount of scatter arrows and then B-Kid standing up there. He's got the interrupt. Michael Udall, he's going to moonfire. This is going to be incredibly difficult. We're going to have a fight. I don't think they're going to get this the old-fashioned way. The old-fashioned way at this point is going to be just a fight. They're aggressing forward, trying to force this out. Here comes the Dragon Arrow.
Dragon's Arrow only hits Sergeant Hammer play of the game as Dansky pops back up and agility is out. Blunt Force Gun forces Cure into the bunker, and we do have that good old-fashioned fight, but a double taunt spells the end of plays. A drag brings in B-Kid, forcing the indestructible. Now the silence causing massive amounts of problems from ENDEMIC.
Well, Dahaka does fall. Pulse Bomb's going to be there. King Caffeine gets stuffed, not enough to get the takedown, and Biggie taking so much damage. K1 Pro still trying to fight over this. 3 members of ENDEMIC are going to hold on here, but Tiger JK is actually going to complete the channel, and that is it. GG. Simplicity comes in with this Sergeant Hammer camp and takes game number 1.
I don't know if that silence was from Contagion or if it was the respect the elderly, but either way, that was a lot of people who did not want to be silenced. That choke is so hard to fight into with the Sergeant Hammer, not to mention the Deckard Cain, which is also a big problem to try to fight in there too. The decision-making around the Sergeant Hammer for both Simplicity and ENDEMIC was awesome, but it's great that Simplicity comes in a changed team.
Well, you look at the damage numbers there. Tracer only sitting on 39,000 versus Hanzo. Her opportunities were extremely limited, and every time you went in there, you have the shield when you barrel roll from Falstad. Of course, Sergeant Hammer just presses E, gets that armor. So things like that nature, that's Sergeant Hammer, there's a reason she's been banned a couple times, and I guarantee if you're going to pick an early Tracer, you might be looking to ban that Sergeant Hammer going forward. And credit to Simplicity, we criticized their drafts pretty harshly in games 1 and 2, and I think it was justified. I think they even tweeted maybe a few things about that. But this draft today, a very different effort, a very concerted effort, and Zuna played much better and kept himself alive in different situations. And I think sometimes not calling his name is probably better than calling his name because it could be on the bad side. But the drag that he landed on that
drags.
Tracer, they were top notch.
Yeah, he landed a lot of drags, and the combination of him with Deckard Cain, who we got to see Tiger JK play. I don't think we saw a Tiger JK Deckard Cain in their first series this weekend. So all of that just stepping up. And again, I want to highlight how important having a coach that you respect in Equinox like that. I think no doubt that was a big point in them being able to make these kind of improvements, as well as these are fantastic players, and maybe just having a wake-up call that, hey, that series did not work out how they were wanting it to, but coming back in now and looking fresh.
Color me impressed. That is not what I expected. Coming into today after the Simplicity performance the other day, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to win a game. Now it's like, can ENDEMIC? They got to fight back now, and I don't know if they necessarily. We heard from Michael Udall saying that he expected a tougher series. That Simplicity generally starts out strong during the phases, but this is one I don't know if we anticipated after watching Friday. But again, drafting alone is going to be so important for Simplicity. If they can continue to execute like this, I'm very much all on board for them going in this series.
But shout outs to ENDEMIC, because like we talked about throughout the game, there were a lot of difficult decisions that they had to make, and it felt like we've heard Michael Udall talk about difficulties with shot calling in the past for this team and how the addition of Dansky and Cure helps them out a lot. And you could see that even in when they lost the boss to No Tomorrow in the first game of their series, in that they didn't lose their composure. They did what was necessary to bring that game back. And you could see the adaptations constantly, the gears turning to try to figure out what they needed to do. They needed to control that top lane and how much more that meant for them. And because of that, we had one heck of a game 1. I'm stoked for the rest of the series.
We saw a first pick on Malfurion, and we saw some success with Michael Udall and Deckard.